When my mother passed away, the grief was overwhelming. She had been my anchor, my confidant, and the person who always believed in me, even when the world felt like it was against me. Her death left a void that nothing could fill. But amidst the heartbreak, there was one thing that gave me comfort: the house. It wasn't just a building, it was the place where we had shared countless memories, where her presence still lingered in every corner. It was my sanctuary, my connection to her, and the one thing that felt like home. Please subscribe to our channel and help us to reach 1,000 subscribers. Just a subscribe. But my stepfather, Richard, had other plans. Richard had married my mother when I was a teenager, and while we were never close, I tolerated him for her sake. He was charming on the surface, but there was always something about him that felt calculated, like he was constantly weighing what he could gain from every situation. After my mother's death, his true colors began to show. At first, he pretended to be supportive, offering to help me manage the house and sort through her belongings. But it didn't take long for his intentions to become clear. One evening, as I was sitting in the living room surrounded by boxes of my mother's things, Richard walked in with a smug expression. "We need to talk," he said, his tone sharp and businesslike. I set down the photo album I had been holding, bracing myself for whatever he was about to say. "This house," he began, gesturing around the room, "is too much for you to handle. You're young, you don't have the resources to maintain it, and frankly, it's not fair for you to keep it all to yourself." I stared at him, my heart sinking. "What are you talking about?" I asked, my voice trembling. He sighed, as if he were explaining something to a child. "Legally, this house belongs to me now. Your mother and I were married, and as her husband, I have rights to the property. It's time for you to move on and find your own place." The words hit me like a punch to the gut. This house wasn't just property. It was my mother's legacy, the one thing she had left behind for me. And now, Richard was trying to take it away, claiming it as his own. I felt a surge of anger and disbelief, but I knew better than to let him see how much his words had shaken me. "This house was my mother's," I said firmly. "She wanted me to have it. You can't just kick me out." Richard smirked, his confidence unwavering. "We'll see about that," he said, turning to leave the room. "I suggest you start packing." As the days passed, Richard's attempts to push me out became more aggressive. He started bringing over real estate agents to appraise the house, claiming he was exploring options. He left legal documents on the kitchen counter, highlighting clauses that he thought would prove his ownership, and he made it clear, in no uncertain terms, that he wouldn't stop until I was gone. But what Richard didn't know was that I had a secret. A piece of information that would turn his plans upside down and ruin him in ways he couldn't imagine. I wasn't just going to fight back. I was going to make sure he regretted ever trying to take what wasn't his. Please subscribe to our channel and help us to reach 1,000 subscribers. Just a subscribe. And tell me in comments, from where are you watching this video Richard thought he had won? He walked around the house with smug satisfaction, speaking to real estate agents as if his takeover was already finalized. He never missed an opportunity to remind me that, in his eyes, I was merely occupying his house, my mother's house, until he decided it was time for me to go. The audacity of his entitlement was infuriating, but what he didn't know was that I had a secret he wasn't prepared for. And that secret? It would dismantle everything he had built. Richard's plan relied on deception. He had convinced himself that marrying my mother gave him ownership over the house. His arrogance was astounding, but ultimately it would be his downfall. While Richard paced around the home acting as if he was king, I spent days combing through paperwork, determined to find the legal proof that would expose his scheme. I had remembered something. Before my mother passed, she had always been careful with her legal affairs. She had told me explicitly that she wanted to ensure the house remained mine, no matter what. So why was Richard so confident? After hours of searching, I found the answer tucked away in a locked desk drawer. Her will. It was signed, sealed, and notarized, indisputable proof that the house was mine. Not Richard's, mine. The document spelled out her wishes in undeniable clarity. All property and assets to be transferred directly to my child. There were no loopholes, no vague language, just black and white confirmation that Richard had zero legal claim to the house. As soon as I read it, I knew I had everything I needed to ruin him. I wasn't going to just serve Richard eviction papers and call it a day. No, he needed to feel the weight of what he had done. He needed to experience the humiliation he had tried to inflict on me. First, I contacted an attorney, someone experienced in handling estate disputes. I explained the situation and provided every piece of documentation proving that I was the rightful owner. My lawyer reviewed the will and said the words I had been waiting to hear. Richard has no case. He can't fight this and win. With the legal groundwork in place, I moved on to phase 2, the psychological war. Richard had been bragging about his impending sale of the house, telling mutual acquaintances that he was in negotiations with buyers. So, I let him continue his charade. I watched, amused, as he showed potential buyers around, talking about renovations and design plans as though he had a future here. And then, I pulled the rug out from under him. One evening, while Richard entertained a group of potential buyers, I casually walked into the room, holding the will in my hands. The moment his eyes landed on the paper, the color drained from his face. "What are you doing?" he hissed, his fake smile faltering in front of the guests. I smiled back, sweetly, and handed him the document. "I just thought you should know," I said, loud enough for everyone to hear, "that this house isn't yours. It never was, and legally, you have no right to sell it." The guests exchanged uncomfortable glances, whispering among themselves. One of them, a wealthy-looking man in a tailored suit, raised an eyebrow. "Is this true?" he asked Richard skeptically. Richard scrambled, flipping through the pages, his hands shaking as he realized the full weight of the situation. This can't be." "It is," I interjected, my voice steady. "I own this house. My mother made sure of it. And you?" I tilted my head. "You need to start packing." The silence that followed was deafening. His potential buyers quickly excused themselves, murmuring about misrepresentation and legal issues. Richard stood there, breathing heavily, his confidence shattered. But I wasn't finished. The official eviction process began soon after. My lawyer served Richard a formal notice, giving him an undeniable deadline to leave the property. He tried to fight it, of course he did, but every attempt was pathetic. He begged, he threatened, he raged, but none of it mattered. Legally, he had lost. He had no rights to the house, no money to challenge me in court, no support from the people who once entertained his lies. And when the day finally came for him to leave, I made sure he felt every ounce of humiliation. I invited a few close friends over, people who had supported me through the battle, and we sat up on the front lawn watching Richard move out of what had once been my mother's home. He tried to ignore us, but the weight of the situation was unbearable. He avoided eye contact, his movements stiff and angry as he packed up his things. The man who had once bragged about kicking me out was now the one being forced to leave. As he loaded the final box into his car, I walked up to him, just close enough to make sure he heard me. "This could have gone differently," I said, my tone calm but firm. "You could have respected my mother's wishes. You could have done the right thing. But instead, you chose greed, you chose arrogance, and now you're left with nothing." Richard didn't respond. He just climbed into his car and drove away, out of my life forever. Reclaiming my home. Once Richard was gone, I focused on restoring the house, not just physically, but emotionally. I repainted the walls, rearranged the furniture, and filled the space with reminders of my mother. Photos, letters, pieces of her personality that made the house feel alive again. For the first time in months, I felt peace. Friends and family gathered, helping me celebrate the victory. Laughter filled the air, replacing the tension that Richard had once brought. I finally had my home back, the place my mother had fought to leave for me. And the best part? I knew that wherever she was smiling. Richard had tried to take everything from me, but in the end, I took everything from him. The house was mine, The victory was mine, and the life I rebuilt, that was mine too. Greedy people never win, and if they try, make sure they